So let us talk about ecosystems. How have ecosystems changed? Well, it's a tricky task because humans are interfering intensively with ecosystems. So the changes that we see are not primarily because of global warming, but because of other human impacts. Talking about deforestation, conversion of land to increase agriculture, stuff like that. Okay, so I just want to give you a little overview of ecosystem changes and what has happened. So where humans had the biggest impact on the health of ecosystems. And what we're talking about is something that can be called ecosystem services. And ecosystem services are defined as the benefits people obtain from ecosystems. And these ecosystem services include 4 different types. We're talking about provisioning services such as food, water, timber, fuel, and fiber, that we take from ecosystems, for our own purposes. And we benefit from regulating services that affect climate, floods, disease, waste, and water quality. There are cultural services that provide recreational, aesthetic, and spiritual benefits. And we have also supporting services linked with soil formation, photosynthesis, and nutrient cycling with processes like that. So the human species, while buffered against environmental changes by culture and technology, is fundamentally dependent on the flow of ecosystem services. And we can look at all these ecosystem services and we can study their impacts and how they have changed. And there is a link. There are linkages between ecosystem services and human well-being. Human well-being we can define in 4 different groupings. We can define them in part as shown here on this table. We can define them as security, as basic material for good life, as health, and as good social relations. And added here is also freedoms and choice as a quality of well-being. Again, you can link the ecosystem services to these determinants and constituents of well-being. All right. So, and this is now from the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which involved more than 1,000 scientists and having a look at the ecosystem and how it has changed. So we have direct and indirect drivers of change. And the key here is the world population has doubled to 6 billion between 1960 and 2000. It's a doubling. So this is a massive demand in increased food production. The demand for ecosystem services grew significantly, which implies the food production increased 2.5-fold, the water use doubled, with the wood harvest for pulp and paper production tripled, and timber production increased by more than half. And that's the reason why ecosystems degraded significantly. And you have these links. We have different compartments of the system. Here we have indirect drivers of change. We have direct drivers of change. And as a direct driver, there is the climate change listed in here. Okay, and I'm not going through the details here. I just want to summarize what these scientists have found in their Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. Okay, so what are the major human impacts on ecosystem processes? Okay, and this is a little list. The biggest one, okay, or one of the big one, is meddling with the carbon cycle. This is a global climate change due to the greenhouse effect, the anthropogenic greenhouse effect. Okay. Humans also mess around with the nitrogen and phosphorus cycle. Okay, since 1960, flows of biologically available nitrogen in terrestrial ecosystems have doubled, and flows of phosphorus have tripled. And it's because of the increased use of nutrient fertilizers, and it has led to eutrophication. Okay, eutrophication is the excess of nutrients in waterways leading to toxic algae blooms and so-called dead zones, which are zones where the oxygen becomes depleted and kills off the life in these zones. Humans also interfere with the water cycle, so water withdrawals from rivers and lakes for irrigation or for urban and industrial use have doubled between 1960 and 2000. Worldwide, 70% of water use is for agriculture, and humans use 10% of the available renewable freshwater supply. So there are some big factors in here. Land cover change is another aspect. So cultivated systems, which are areas where at least 30% of the landscape is in croplands, okay, shifting cultivation, confined livestock production or freshwater agriculture, now cover 1/4 of the Earth's terrestrial surface. 1/4, 25%. Okay. Other factors include urbanization, different forms of pollution like plastic pollution, and exploitation of resources like overfishing. Okay, there are big features too. Okay, and the global warming comes on top of this. Okay, this all happened without the global warming, but there's indeed the feedback of the intense or the increase in CO2 emissions. It's directly linked to the population growth. So now observed ecosystem changes. Okay, many animal and plant populations have declined in numbers, geographical spread, or both. The overall biodiversity is decreasing, and the range of genetic differences within species has declined. 1/4 of mammal species are currently threatened by extinction. Human activity has caused 50 to 1,000 times more extinctions in the last 100 years than occurred before. So that's the summary. Okay, these are the observed ecosystem changes. And just a little slide on land cover changes. Okay, fraction of potential area converted in percent. And you can see here numbers like this is a table that shows Mediterranean forests, woodlands, and scrub. Okay, and it shows the loss by 1950 is by the lightest color, and then you see the loss between 1950 and 1990 in the brown, light brown, and the dark brown shows the projected loss in the future. Okay, and you can see some projected changes here: tropical, subtropical, dry, broadleaf forests, and you can see that there are still big changes happening. Okay, so this will indeed lead to a further degradation of ecosystems. Okay, so still a little bit more. So I found so many interesting statements in this Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. Just telling you that in response to a rapidly increasing population, the increase in global food production has caused severe harm to the health and functioning of most terrestrial and marine ecosystems, causing significant harm to some people, particularly the poor. The likelihood of nonlinear changes in ecosystems, including acceleration, abrupt, or potentially irreversible changes having important consequences for human well-being, has increased. Okay? Examples of such changes include disease emergence, the creation of dead zones in coastal waters and rivers, the collapse of fisheries, and shifts in regional climate. Future climate change will dramatically exacerbate the situation. So here we go. That's the message from this report. Here are some study questions. What are the key atmospheric changes caused by human activity? What does the Keeling curve show? How has precipitation changed in the past 20 years? What factors have impacted ecosystems? What are ecosystem services? And how have humans modified the cycles of carbon, nitrogen, and water, and surface vegetation too? All right, so thanks for watching. See you.